Evening, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started if you don't mind. Before we get going, if I could remind you, and I will be the first, let's please mute our cell phones. We will be recorded. You are actually going to be live on Channel 5 TV, and you will be on YouTube at the end of the night. So welcome. Thank you for coming to the first annual Sterling Heights Fire Department Awards Night. We used to do this at every open house. But it got a little bit complicated, and we were always playing with the weather because we were outside. So we decided to change it up a little bit. It was a great showing for our first event, so I would like to kick it off by asking you to please rise for the national anthem and stay up for Chaplain Ray Honen's invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief. Please be seated, ladies and gentlemen. Well, it's a good day in the city. The city has good days, and this is on the list. This is a very cool and fun event. Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to wear the uniform, Chief. I'm very grateful. It seems like lately I've been wearing this uniform too much for funeral visitations and funerals. So when I donned my Class A suit this morning or this afternoon, I smiled on the inside. And standing in front of you, my heart is smiling. I just want to share that with you. Before we go any further, are there any veterans in the house? If you are a veteran, if you've served the United States of America, would you please stand if you're able, or at least raise your hand so we can recognize your service to the United States of America? Awesome, awesome. Thank you for your commitment, and also to your family who supported you in those times. We will never forget, and you've made us a better place to be. Unfortunately, so far this year, ladies and gentlemen, 38 firefighters and 94 police officers, including K-9 officers, have lost their lives while in the performance of their duties in the country. 9 of those deaths, with regard to our law enforcement brothers and sisters, still or have come as a result of the 9/11 attacks so many years ago. So we're still paying the price for that, if you will, and may we never forget the lessons learned and how that changed us forever, both professionally and personally, on that beautiful September day. Let's bow our heads and give thanks. Heavenly Father, we gratefully come into this building, and candidly, more importantly, we come into your presence. We ask for your continued blessings on this community. Father, we may not state it, but we do really sincerely feel your blessings on us each and every day, and may you just be, may we be filled with recognizing where every good and great thing comes from. We are so pleased that this is the first annual event. We look forward to many, many, many more years of this, because our public servants will step forward, Father. Our firefighters, especially in this setting, will continue to do the job, and they're very good at what they do. So I ask, as the chaplain, for your special blessings on our brothers and sisters who wear the uniform of the fire service in Sterling Heights, and also the police department as well. Father, lead us. Let me get out of the way. And again, please accept our humble and grateful thanks for every good and great thing. We ask for your strength in all matters, Father. It's in the name of the risen Christ we ask these things and give thanks. Amen.
Thank you very much, Ray. You're going to hear a lot of stories tonight about teamwork. That teamwork might be from a civilian on a golf course to a dispatcher to a police officer to a firefighter. But our teamwork starts with the support we get from City Council. And with us tonight we have I'll go from left to right, is Councilwoman Deanna Koski, please. Round of applause for Deanna. Councilwoman Barb Ziarko. Councilwoman Maria Schmidt. And City Manager Mark Vanderpool. I know it's a Friday night and there's a lot of things going on, so the Mayor, Mike Taylor, Councilman Radke, Mayor Pro Tem Liz Sorowski, and Councilman Henry Yanis could not make it tonight, but they're supporters of us, and they're the reason why we can do what we do. So we work on like a different fiscal year for our awards. This is October, it's Fire Prevention Month, so our awards went every open house to every open house. So our awards and everything we do runs from like October 1st of last year till October 1st of this year. So that's kind of why we're doing this now. But I'd like to get started with the Civilian Fire Academy graduation. So this is the second Civilian Fire Academy we've run. We had a hiatus for a few years with some budget cuts. We started it in the 90s. It ran for a few years. This is the second year in a row. It was very successful. So at this point, what I'd like to do is show a little bit of a video of some of the things that Civilian Fire Academy got to do. We had to cut that video from about 37 minutes down to 11, and then I think we got it down to 5 or 6. So bear with us. There's some pretty cool stuff. So you get an idea of what the Civilian Fire Academy is all about. We've got some great feedback. There's even some people that have been through the Civilian Police Academy that said the Civilian Fire Academy is much better. So that's just our plug. So if you're interested in it, we're going to run it again September of next year. So stay tuned for that. So I'd like to get Captain Steve Kohut up here. Steve is the one that leads the Civilian Fire Academy, coordinated the whole thing. We gave him some help with the registration process, and Steve took the ball and ran with it. So in addition to that, I'd like to get all of our graduates up here so we can get you in one group, get a little graduation ceremony here, get a picture and everything, and we'll go.
All right, thank you, Chief. Yeah, we can do that.
So come on up. So we have Joseph Brungart. Come on up here, we'll just stand in front, and you guys can stand in line and as we go.
Joe.
Joe's not here. Elizabeth Kasovic. There you go. Ken Dunlap. Come on up, Ken. And just stand up there. We'll get up there. Move across the front. We'll get a picture. Christopher Keeney. Tom Kohler. Dina was clapping for you. Adam Lepacki. Gershi Muka. Kyle McIntyre. William Nichols. Pam Puffer. Bassam Shamus. Lisa Stout. And Mark Wentz. How about a round of applause for everybody? Steve, why don't you join them up front? Anybody wants to take a picture, go ahead and take a picture. We'll get out of the way with the group. We can move around a little bit, make it a little bit more centered. Very cool. Thank you very much.
Nice job.
Steve. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We certainly enjoyed having you. So make sure to put us on Yelp and whatever other kind of rating we can get. So we'll move on with the awards. In general, there's a lot of great stuff that goes on in the Sterling Heights Fire Department, and it's all about teamwork. And our teamwork starts from a civilian that might witness something. That civilian calls 911. The professional dispatchers step up, do their job, not only getting the fire trucks and the police officers to the scene, but taking control of the situation and giving direction before we get there. And you'll hear some great examples of that. Our motto is our family helping yours. And each year, and like every day, our family gets bigger because of the help we get from the people, and the people that we've interacted with all become part of our family in the long run. And so the first three stories I'm going to tell you about tonight are all about CPR. Somebody went into cardiac arrest, somebody stepped up, somebody survived, and somebody lived to see another day. And because of that, we're going to recognize some of the people. This first one tonight, you might have seen at the city council meeting a couple weeks ago. It is our number 18 Survivor Coin candidate. Mr. Robert Raffin is in the audience today. None of the three individuals that are getting recognized showed up tonight. They got their recognition at the council meeting 2 weeks ago, but I invited them here. But Mr. Raffin's here with his 19-month-old son. 19-month-old son that he's able to raise. His story goes like this. July 13th of 2018, he's on the Plumbrook Golf Course. Number 9, it's a dogleg right across the creek. He teed off, fell face down into a cardiac arrest. The three people that he was golfing with, longtime friends, longtime golf partners, started CPR, called 911. You can imagine our response time of getting to the golf course, then getting out on the golf course. If it wasn't for CPR, Mr. Raffin wouldn't be here. So we're just so pleased. And on our behalf, we gave Dr. John Karras John Brosis and Russ Buzo the Exceptional Civilian Service Award a couple weeks ago at the city council meeting. So they couldn't join us tonight, but that's okay. They did what they needed to do. So moving on, November 8th of 2018, Mr. John Coppins was shopping at Kroger at 18 Mile in DeQuinder, and suddenly he collapsed into a cardiac arrest. Luckily for him, behind him was Darren Inda, who has been a longtime paramedic, probably 30 years, Darren, I mean, it's been a long time, who was right behind him, and a security guard by the name of Melissa Schaefer. They immediately started CPR on Mr. Coppins. Engine 5, Ambulance 5 responded from Station 5. Takes them 4 minutes to get there. They took over care. It was a long, drawn-out treatment on the scene, and Mr. Coppins is here tonight to meet for the first time, I might add, Melissa Schaefer, because we couldn't track her down until recently. But Darren was here when Mr. Coppins became the number 17 survival coin. So if we can get Darren and Melissa up here, Mr. Coppins, why don't you come up here and present them with their Exceptional Civilian Service Award. Moving on to May the 19th, 2019, and this one I really like because it's right around the street, right around the corner from my house, so I know that I got neighbors that can take care of me if something happens. But Mr. Brian Parker was fertilizing his lawn. His neighbor Andrea Trombley and a neighbor across the street, Matt Zielinski, seen him collapse. They went out, immediately started CPR, called 911. Station 2 from 19 and Shana responded, treated Mr. Parker, and he made a full recovery after surviving a cardiac arrest. So if I can get Mr. Parker, I thought was coming, and Andrea and Matt to the front, please. We will get a repeat of performance of that at the October 15th City Council meeting because Mr. Parker is going to become the number 19 survival coin recipient of the Sterling Heights Fire Department. So another great story. Moving on to dispatch, you've probably heard me tell you this story 50 times. If that's the case, it's going to be 51 because I have just such much admiration for our dispatchers. When we started our survival coin program in 2016, it's when I really started to listen to 911 calls because I wanted to identify who had a role in that event and that survivor situation. I wanted to make sure if the dispatchers did something or if there was a bystander. So I started listening to the 911 calls, and what I realized is after 30 years of driving in a fire truck down the street, honking the horn on the way to somebody's emergency, and then getting somewhere to fix a problem, I never realized what was going on in that 4 minutes that we were in the fire truck. And really what's going on is there's a dispatcher on the phone with somebody who is having the worst day of their life. And some of those stories I've listened to brought me to tears of how the dispatchers got to deal with that call. They take command of that situation. They direct those people to do the right thing until the fire department can get there, and they save lives every day, and they have my utmost respect. And you're going to hear some of those stories tonight. The first one, dispatcher Melissa Milano could not be here. She was here, though, when we presented Sabah Darter with the number 14 survivor coin, because on September 1st of last year, he went into cardiac arrest. His wife called 911, and she had no idea what to do. and Melissa walked her through CPR until the police officer could arrive, take over CPR, and the fire department arrived and took over care. So on behalf of the fire department, we're going to honor Melissa Morano with the FD commendation. So she couldn't make it tonight, but we're just grateful that she is there every day doing what we need her to do. So round of applause for Melissa. Also, you'll hear several stories tonight about our police department and even the Troy Police Department that stepped up in one of our emergencies. But we've got a great relationship with the police department. I come from a family of firefighters, but I have police officers in the family. A couple of the guys I graduated from high school with became police officers, so there has been a nonstop rift between police and fire. We still do it every day. It's the donuts, it's the lazy boys, whatever it is, it's nonstop between us. But I can tell you this, when the real business happens, those professionals all step up and do what needs to be done, and there's several stories like that tonight. The first one, neither officer could be here, but on October 19th, 2018, a gentleman was crushed between two large pieces of equipment in a construction accident right off of Utica Road. Officers Garrett Burton and Luke Dusler responded because they were in the area, and they realized that this individual was bleeding profusely. They applied a tourniquet to his leg to stop the bleeding. The fire department came and continued that treatment, and he survived that incident. And if it wouldn't have been for their actions, he would not have survived that incident. So a round of applause for Officer Garrett Burton and Luke Dusler. Again, neither one could be here. November 26th, and I don't think Emily Prezzato came, right? Is Emily here? Is Emily Prezzato, Officer Prezzato? Yeah, I think she couldn't make it. But on November 26, 2018, Officer Emily Prezzato was on patrol when a call came in for a person not breathing. She arrived on the scene and found a man unresponsive, face down, not breathing. She rolled that man over, opened up his airway, started CPR until the fire department could respond, take over care, and save that man's life. So she's going to get the FD commendation, and again, a round of applause for Officer Prezzato. I see Officer Remy Verstraete in the house, so please come on up, Remy. Pretty recently, August 21st, 2019, Officer Verstraete was on patrol when a run came in for a person not breathing. Officer Verstraete arrived on the scene, found somebody with an obstructed airway. He took the Heimlich maneuver and some other maneuvers to get a grape out of somebody's airway, and they were breathing before the fire department got there. So I think he said, you guys, we're all set. You don't have to do anything. I took care of this. But just another example of great work by our police officers. So on behalf of the Sterling Heights Fire Department, Remy, please accept the FD Commendation Award. So this last year, again, our year for our awards runs October to October. This past year has been very hectic in the Sterling Heights Fire Department. We've had several very large fires, and these fires were large and had people trapped in it. And from our world, when we're responding to a fire, the last thing we want to hear is there's somebody trapped, because it changes a dangerous firefighting operation to tenfold more dangerous for our men and women, because they put themselves in risk to save lives. So on May the 17th of 2019, we were called to Lakeside Towers for a fire investigation on the 7th floor because the alarms were going off and people smelled smoke. Firefighters Josh Kickbush and Nate Mazinski were investigating the fire and realized that fire was coming from room on the 7th floor. They kicked the door in and found an unresponsive man. They pulled him from the fire, they treated him, and he survived that event. So firefighter Kickbush couldn't make it here tonight, but Nate Mazinski, please come forward and get the Distinguished Service Award. November 10th, 2018, a fire came in at Lakeside Apartments. 911 call came in, and again, it takes us, processing for a call is about a minute, getting the fire department on the way is about a minute, and then our response time is guided on how far away the fire station is from the fire. So the dispatchers took over. Emily Hurlbutt was on duty that day, and she took all the information in and gave that information to our responders because there was a lot of serious things going on. I don't believe Emily made it here tonight. Is that correct? Emily's not here, yeah. But Emily was giving that information to Engine 2 and Squad 2, or right down the street on 19 Mile. And what she was telling them was there's a rapidly growing fire, one individual that is critically injured, and several people trapped. So this information goes out to all the fire trucks that are responding. It helps them gear their tactics of what they're going to do when they get there. When Engine 2 arrived, led by Lieutenant Dan Zender, they were confronted with a large fire, an individual laying on the ground that was severely burned, and people trapped on the second floor. I think about 7 or 8 people were trapped. So he split his crew. They went to work keeping the fire from growing. 2 firefighters treated the patient and rushed him to the hospital, and the others, with the help of police officers, rescued 7 people from the second floor rear of that building. So on behalf of the Sterling Heights Fire Department, we're going to give Emily Hurlbut, the dispatcher, the FD commendation. Again, she couldn't be here tonight. And Officer Luke Dusseler, who's not here again tonight, but that name's up ringing a bell, so I think he really wants to be a firefighter. He's chasing us around and helping us out wherever he can. But he helped Lieutenant Dan Zender throw ladders up on the building and rescue 3 people at the time when Officer Dusseler helped him. So firefighter Sean Lumley, who couldn't be here tonight, is getting recognized with the Distinguished Service Award for being the one that attacked the fire and kept it in bay. Stephen Cluse, if you don't mind coming up here. Lieutenant Tracy Davis and Lieutenant Dan Zender, please come on up. So Stephen Cluse rescued an elderly lady who was terrified, as the report said, from the second floor by carrying her down a ladder. And so for his part in that, he's going to receive the Distinguished Service Award. Stephen? Lieutenant Tracy Davis rescued 2 elderly ladies by carrying them down a ladder by herself. She used her training and all of her expertise to do that, and for that, she's going to get this Distinguished Service Award. And Lieutenant Dan Zender, who you'll see again later on tonight, rescued 2 people on a ladder, and then he had help from Officer Dusseler to rescue 3 more. So for his actions, he's going to receive the Distinguished Service Award. Now let's move on to Christmas Day. So Christmas Day, we experienced probably one of the worst, most complicated fires in the history of the city of Sterling Heights. Apartment building on DeQuinder called the Sterling Troy Apartments. About 9 o'clock in the morning, again on Christmas Day, a fire broke out. That fire spread rapidly because the individual that had the fire in his apartment left the door open and the window had burned open, so the air just rushed through there and pushed that fire throughout that building. We had 26 firefighters on duty that morning. All 26 firefighters responded. We had dozens of police officers from the city of Sterling Heights and the city of Troy that responded, and we rescued dozens of people that day because of that team effort. So again, starting with the dispatchers, and who couldn't be here is Alyssa Amy. She couldn't be here tonight, but Haley Luce and Samantha Van Oorn. Did I mess that up? Please come on up. So their role in this was about 8 hours of giving information, to the crews, including that first few minutes where they're getting dozens and dozens of calls about people trapped, and they're conveying that information to the fire department. We had a firefighter that got injured, broke his leg immediately upon arriving to that scene, which added chaos to that, and as you'll hear in a little while, we had 2 firefighters that were trapped. And so their job is to make sure that our firefighters on the scene and our incident commander on the scene gets that information and deals with that correctly. So on our behalf, we're just grateful for their service, and we're going to give them the FD commendation. I'm sure there's a few jokes I can put in here about the police department, but on that day, again, every one of our fire trucks showed up from the city of Sterling Heights. We called our mutual aid, but mutual aid takes 10, 12 minutes to get there. So our police officers recognized that there was people that needed rescue because our firefighters can only do so much with the manpower. So they started grabbing ladders off the truck. So the police chief told me, he said, at first they didn't realize how to get our ladders off the truck. I told him that's by design. We don't really want you touching our stuff. And we haven't trained them how to do it since, but they figured it out. I don't know if they shot at it or something and it came off, but in all seriousness, we had a series of Troy police officers and Sterling Heights police officers that took ladders off of fire trucks and pulled people out of second-floor windows. And if it wasn't for their action in doing that, these people would have perished. So I know in the audience we have Sergeant Mike, I'm going to screw this one up, Schmazinski. Come on up, Mike. I'm sorry, Officer Mike Schmazinski. Officer Alex Pera. Come on up, officer. And Officer Lighthouser, who did an RSVP, so it's your fault. So thank you very much. Yeah, but a round of applause for them. In addition to these three officers from Troy, the other officers from Troy are Officer Endrit Fiola, Michael Grosso, Ben Hancock, Rachel Pink, and Jason Bordeaux. So a round of applause for our Troy Police Department. Thank you, gentlemen. Our Sterling Heights Police Department also responded and did, again, several rescues. In the house tonight is Officer Andre Basin and Matthew Vergadamo. Gentlemen, come on up. Again, we're going to recognize them with the FD Commendation Award. In addition to these two officers from Sterling Heights, it was Sergeant Jeff Booza, Officer Michael Conley, Gregory Glinsky, Stephen Kujat, Tricia Latour, Kevin McClellan, Dominic Redmond, Larry Reynolds, Randy Shippey, and Kyle Smith. So a round of applause for our Sterling Heights Police Department. Moving forward to the fire department awards for that day, every one of our firefighters was going to work either trying to put that fire out or rescue the people, because we have to do both at the same time. If that fire spreads, more people are in danger. So two of our captains that were there that day have since retired. I don't see either of them in the audience. They didn't drive from their northern place to come get their award. But Captain Bob Haas and Captain Rich Werbeck were key in that event, because they're the leaders that take those crews and do the things that they did. So Lieutenant Tracy Davis, come on back up. Michael Peterson, come on up. So all of the people getting the Distinguished Service Award are Lieutenant Tracy Davis, Sergeant Jason Myers, FEO Tom Smith, Firefighter Trevor Dean, Firefighter Matt Marduz, and Firefighter Michael Peterson. Only Lieutenant Davis and Michael Peterson could make it tonight, so congratulations. Battalion Chief Beatty, please come on up. So as I said, this was one of the most complicated fires that we've ever had in the city of Sterling Heights. I said that when we had Buff Whalen, and look what happens. We go and do this. So maybe I jinxed, because Tim's like the black cloud of fires. So, but Tim Beatty was the battalion chief on duty that day. And what Tim had to deal with in those first few minutes and then several hours was just amazing how he controlled himself. So he had what's known as a firefighter Mayday, which you'll hear in a few minutes. And he had to manage making sure his firefighters got out of that alive. And I can tell you that, again, Christmas morning, when we have a situation like that, we put a page out for any of the staff that can come help out, because we need all hands on deck for that. And I was headed down Metro Parkway when I heard the Mayday come out, and my heart went in my gut, because what I thought was that Christmas Day was going to be tragic for the Sterling Heights Fire Department. And really what it was a great shining day, because the men and women did everything they could to rescue all those people, and every one of our men and women came home that day. And that is because of the work of Battalion Chief Beatty, who coordinated that rescue effort coordinated that firefighting effort, and I can't say enough about what he did that day, except I can give him the Distinguished Service Award. Lieutenant Wellhausen, come on up. So Mark doesn't like to talk about this, and this is the last time we'll talk about this for a little while anyway, Mark. Mark was the lieutenant in charge of Engine 3. Engine 3 is right down the street. They're the first to arrive. With Engine 3 is Squad 3. So we run an ambulance and an engine, and it's 5 firefighters. So 5 firefighters arrived on the scene. The first to arrive, they didn't have any backup for another 4 or 5 minutes for the next engine to get there. And Mark had his hands full. He knew from the dispatchers that there was people trapped. He knew from looking at the fire that it was spreading and putting more people in peril. And he knew what he had to do. He split his crew. He put 2 firefighters on attacking the fire. His driver had to establish a water supply and make sure that those firefighters had an endless amount of water. And him and firefighter Refnez made the decision to go to the second floor and get some of those victims out. Now, when they do things like that, they don't take a hose line with them because it slows them down. And if you watch TV and you see Chicago Fire or you see any of the shows on TV or Hollywood, that's not real firefighting. That's all Hollywood. What it's really like is endless black smoke and you can't see a thing. You can't breathe that stuff and you can't really operate unless you know what you're doing. So Lieutenant Wellhausen and firefighter Eric Refnez entered the second floor and started bringing people out. As they got closer to the fire, they went into a room. They had an elderly woman that they couldn't take out the hallway because it was too unsafe. So they signaled the guys outside that threw a ladder. They got the elderly woman onto the ladder and down to safety. But then the radio kept saying there's more people trapped. So instead of getting out, what they did is put themselves further in harm's way. They went out in the hallway, they went closer to the fire, and they entered another room and they searched because they figured if we can save one more life before this place gets out of control, we're going to do that. So in searching that room, they didn't locate anybody, but what they did find out is they are now trapped. And so Mark and Eric made it to the window. A mayday was called, and when the firefighters on the ground heard the mayday, they quickly brought some ladders to that window. Firefighter Refnez did a headfirst dive down that ladder as he was trained to do. Lieutenant Wellhausen did the same thing. He was just a little off, and he missed that ladder. He flipped around, and he landed on some firefighters down below. He didn't get hurt. He got up, shook himself off, and went to work. So that was the mayday that was called. Lieutenant Wellhausen knew that he was trapped, and his firefighter, who was his responsibility to keep safe, was trapped. And they called that mayday, and those guys stepped up and rescued them. And so Mark and Eric are both being recognized with the Medal of Valor, which is a very kind of rare award in the fire department because you have to do something substantial for that. So Mark did that day, and for that, he's going to be recognized with the Medal of Valor. And I hope this Christmas is just a little better. But so that teamwork that day, not just from the police department and the fire department working together on the scene and our dispatchers, the whole city came together because we had a big tragedy and a lot of people that lost their homes. And so the teamwork that was displayed by our whole city across the board was just amazing that day. And it makes me honored to be here as the fire chief and a resident of the city of Sterling Heights. So the last fire I want to talk about tonight happened not too long ago on July 3rd. July 3rd, a fire came in for a residential house off of 16 in Van Dyke area. And again, people are trapped. So the dispatchers are getting calls in. And is Tammy Labiak in? Tammy couldn't make it? Okay. So we had 2 dispatchers that day that really shined. And all the reports I was getting from the fire officers after that said the dispatchers gave us so much information that when we got there, we knew what we had to do. So what Tammy was dealing with talking to all the fire trucks. There's about 7 fire trucks responding to that original call because we knew that there was people trapped. And she was giving them the information that there's a fire on the first floor, it seems bad, and there's 3 people trapped. Rachel Collins was the 911 call taker. So if you're in the dispatch center, when you call 911, you're not actually talking to the person that's dispatching the fire trucks. You're talking to a call taker whose job is just stay there and get the information from you and relay that information to the dispatcher who's then relaying that information to the fire trucks and the police cars. And I got to listen to the 911 call that Rachel took, and she was talking to somebody who she originally thought was calling from a neighbor's house saying that the house was on fire. Now, if you can imagine, when you have a big house fire like that, there's a lot of people calling 911. So they're taking all these calls, they're saying, yeah, we got it, we know it, we're on the way. But as she started getting some information from this young male, she realized that male was in the house. That male was trapped in the basement of that house, and the first floor was fully involved in fire. When she got that information, she relayed that information to Captain John Farrer and his crew of Engine 4. And so when Captain John Farrer arrived on the scene, he knew they had 2 people in the basement of this house, and it was a big ball of fire. They knew what they had to do. So for that, again, neither Tammy or Rachel could be here tonight, but they're going to receive the FD commendation. Oh, Rachel is here. I'm sorry. You guys all wear the same uniform. But just an amazing job that she did on the call. And I can tell you that, like I said earlier, the calmness and the professionalism that our dispatchers deal with and the way they exemplify that work is just amazing, because I couldn't do what they do. I guarantee you that. So if I can get Captain John Farrer up here and Lieutenant Jason Nelson. Firefighter Tom Nowicki couldn't be here tonight, but Janelle and John, please come up. So as I've said, the Medal of Valor is an award that we rarely give away. And as you can see by tonight, this year was so hectic that there's 5 that are given away. I don't think we've ever had more than 1 in one given year in the history of our department. So that just tells you what we've dealt with the last year. But as I was saying when I was telling you the story about the dispatchers, Captain John Farrer was on the first engine that arrived on the scene. His hands are full. He's got to do a couple of things. He's got to set up the water supply, go to the attack mode and go rescue, and then tell everybody else what's going on, so as they start arriving, they know what they had to do. So Captain Farrer and Tom Nowicki dropped the hose line into the garage. If you picture the typical Sterling Heights ranch, there's an entrance from the garage, usually goes into the kitchen, and there's a basement stairs right there. So using his knowledge of building construction in the city of Sterling Heights, he knew the garage entrance was going to be the basement and going to be where they would go rescue these 2 victims. So he put Firefighter Nowicki at the top of the stairs to keep the fire at bay so that it didn't overtake their position, and he single-handedly went down those stairs, located those 2 people. One was unconscious, one was semi-conscious, and again, I listened to the phone call, the 911 Rachel lost track of the one individual because he was getting delirious and passed out. So when Captain Farrer got to them, he grabbed the one and he guided the other up the stairs. And if you can imagine, we really didn't have much of a choice, but the top of the stairs was pretty hot. So there was a little bit of chaos that ensued, and then Captain Farrer had to pull both those victims underneath him and laid on top of them because it was getting a little hectic, and he called a mayday because at that point, him and Firefighter Nowicki were now in trouble. And then come Jason Nelson. Lieutenant Jason Nelson came in there. He grabbed the 2 victims and he helped John Farrer get out. And for that, Captain John Farrer and Firefighter Tom Nowicki are being honored with the Medal of Valor. After that, Lieutenant Nelson then entered the building again. He went through the kitchen and found the 3rd victim that he escorted out, and they started CPR on her. And sadly, that young female didn't survive, but the 2 individuals that were in the basement are on their way to a full recovery, and it was only because of the teamwork of these 2 individuals and the rest of the guys that were on the scene. So please, big round of applause for Captain Farrer and Lieutenant Nelson. So last but not least, I'd like to invite up Lieutenant Dan Zender. Dan is being recognized this year as the Firefighter of the Year, which is, I think it's a very serious award. It means somebody did something throughout the year or throughout their career that deserved it. So I think the best way to tell you about Dan and what Dan did to deserve this is to read the letter that I sent the city manager just today. Mr. Vanderpool, it's with great pleasure that I announce to you that Lieutenant Dan Zender is the 2019 Sterling Heights Fire Department Firefighter of the Year. I know that you will agree with our decision after reading the following words that outline the dedication Dan has put towards the Sterling Heights Fire Department and all those that we serve. Dan was hired by the Sterling Heights Fire Department in December 10th of 2001. He became a paramedic for the organization in January of 2003. He was later assigned to fire engine operator in May of 2014. He was promoted to sergeant in April of 2015 and then promoted again to his current rank of lieutenant in November of 2017. In reviewing Dan's personnel file, it is easy to see that in his 18 years of serving the residents of the city of Sterling Heights, he has done so in an exceptional way. He was awarded with the Meritorious Unit Citation 5 different times, 2004, 2007, 2016, and twice in 2017. He was presented with the Fire Chief's Award in 2006 for taking part in some significant extrication training and competition. In addition to becoming the 2019 Firefighter of the Year, you saw Dan get recognized tonight with the Distinguished Service Award for his actions at Department Fire on November 10, 2018, where he took part in rescuing several residents trapped on the second floor above an apartment fire. Dan has countless thank you letters in his file from residents who he has helped along the years. It is clear to all the men and women in the department that Dan does the job that he was hired to do with excellence, and he is always can be counted on in hectic situations. However, one of the reasons he was selected as Firefighter of the Year is because he has stepped up and taken on many other roles and challenges for the department above and beyond his normal job. For the past several years, Dan has been an integral member of the department's maintenance division and has overseen many duties of that division. Most importantly, the service and maintenance of the self-contained breathing apparatus that each firefighter relies on when entering a burning building. This piece of equipment is the lifeline for our firefighters, and when each of them puts it on, they are relying on Dan's expertise to keep them safe. Their trust in Dan is well-founded, I can assure you. Dan also handles many other maintenance issues, but has been instrumental in helping fire administration plan for the future budgeted needs with our equipment. Lastly, Dan has been recognized for being a mentor of Macomb Community College students learning to become paramedics, and also to other members of the Sterling Heights Fire Department learning the role of lieutenant. Dan is truly an asset to our organization, and I am proud to be able to honor him as the 2019 Sterling Heights Fire Department Firefighter of the Year. Big round of applause for Dan. Dan, speech? You want a speech? No, you good? All right. So again, I want to tell everybody again, teamwork is how we operate. You know, we work in an environment that isn't always safe, and we're asked to do things that normal people don't do. But our teamwork that we get from everybody that helps us is the reason why we're so successful. So I want to thank you for coming out tonight. We will remain here if you want to take some group pictures of anything that any of the award winners tonight. Feel free to do so. We've got cookies and water and coffee back there if you would like. So again, on behalf of the Sterling Heights Fire Department, thank you very much for coming, and have a safe rest of your evening.